everyone! In today's video, we're going to be working with Excel files in Python. I've created another video that's working with CSV files in Python, but today we're going to be working with xlsx files. So let's check it out. In today's video, first of all, I'll just introduce what Excel files are. Then we'll check out the OpenPyXL package, which is the package that we're going to use in Python so that we can work with Excel files. And then we'll check out what we're going to be doing in today's demo, and then we'll get straight into the demo, in which we'll read files and write files. So let's get into the introduction. So now, what is Excel? And up here you can see the logo of Excel right here, but what is the Excel file format? Well, it's a spreadsheet file that's mostly used for financial data, like lots of people use it for like inventory counting, financial data and stuff like that. And it supports mathematical modules. And it's organized in a worksheet or like a grid format, which has rows and columns, and each cell is a different record. So now let's check out the OpenPyXL package. So what is the OpenPyXL package? It's an open source package that works with Python to read and modify Excel files. So like I said before, it works with Excel files, and it works with the latest version of Excel and all of the Excel file formats, including XLS, xlsx, and all the other file formats that support Excel. So now let's get into what we're going to do in the demo. So in the demo, first of all, we'll just read the Excel file. So we'll have a ready-made Excel file that we'll create. And then first of all, we'll read the whole file and just print it out on the terminal screen. And then we'll read just one column and print that on the terminal screen. Then we'll do writing in Excel files. First, we'll write one column, and then we'll write just one cell in the Excel file. So let's get into the demo, in which we'll work with Excel files. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Atom so that we can actually code this. So as you can see, I have two files. We have read.py and write.py for the two different operations that we're going to be doing. So first up is the imports. I'm going to import OpenPyXL, which, like I said before, it's that module we're using to work with Excel files. So let's just copy this organizer here, and then let's do the setup. So setup. And then in the setup, we need to put a variable which actually has our Excel file so that we can read it. So where are we going to make our Excel file? Let's go here, back to Chrome, and then let's just create a Google Sheet. So I'm going to say sheets.new. And then I'm using, since I don't have Excel on my Mac, I'm just going to use Google Sheets and then download that. So, although if you do have Excel, then you can edit it there. So I'm going to call this spreadsheet data, just so that we can save it as data. And then I'm just going to paste in my data that we have here. And then now to save it, we're going to say file, download, and then download it as Microsoft Excel, which is the .xlsx format. And then as you can see here, it downloaded. So let's just right click on this. So let's just right click on this and then press show in Finder. And then now I can just drag and drop this into my folder. So now it's in our folder with our Python program. So here you can see that it's right here. And then you can't open it in Atom, but you can open it in a different application. So if we go back to this, and then if we open up data.xlsx, then it should open it up. And there we go. This is the same data that we created. So after we import OpenPyXL, now we can actually put that into a variable. So I'm just going to call this variable path, and then we're using the string function, and then we're saying data.xlsx, which is our file format, our Excel file. And then OpenPyXL supports a try and accept operation. So I'm going to do that. So try, and then here we can say accept, just in case there's an error. We want to handle it nicely, gracefully. So inside of this, I'm going to make a bunch of variables. So first of all, we have the data.xlsx as a string into that variable, but we want OpenPyXL, which is our module, we want that to be able to read it. So to do that, I'm going to make another variable called file object, and then that will be equal to OpenPyXL, which is our module, dot, and then load workbook. So this is a function, no, workbook. This is a function that will just load our Excel file. So inside of that, I'll say path dot, and then we're going to use the strip function on that. So there we go, that's the file object. And then we want to make that active, so we're going to use the active function. And let's just say file object, so we're going to make sheet object. And then we'll say file object dot active, so we're going to use the active function on that. So active, there we go. All right, next up, we want to get the maximum column and the maximum row so that we can pinpoint any cell or any column or any row we want, just so that we can loop through that. So I'm going to say max column. I'm going to make a variable called max column equals, and then sheet object. Now, whenever we want to mention the Excel file, we're going to use the sheet object variable. So I'm going to use the max column function on that, and then same thing for max row. Sheet object dot max row. All right, there we go. So that's all for the setup. Next up, we can actually get some data from this by looping through each row, and then we can get one column, and then we can get just one value. So now we want to loop through each row in our data, and then we can get each column so that it gets all of the data, all the rows and all the columns. So I'm going to use a for loop saying for row in range, and then the range will be from the second row, which is because we don't want to get the column headers, which is the first row. So we're going to start at the second row, and then we already have our variable called max row, which is the maximum row. So we're going to say max row plus 1, since this is Python indexing here, and then colon. Now inside of this, I want to make a variable for each column that I have in my data. So in this case, if we go back to the data, then as you can see, we have 0, 1, 2, 3 columns. So I'm going to make a variable called column 1, and then that will be equal to our sheet object, which is the variable we're using for our Excel file. So sheet object dot cell, and we're using the cell function to get each cell. So the row is going to be, we have to mention what row and what column it's going to be, since this is a cell here. But since we have it in a loop, I'm going to say row equals row, because this row is the variable. So row equals row, and then column equals 1, since this is the column 1 variable. And then I'm going to copy paste that for all of the columns. So now I'll say 2, and then 3, and then here we'll have 3 and 2. All right, so there we go. Now we have every single cell in the thing. It only looks like 3 variables, but since this is in a loop, it'll get those 3 variables, so those 3 columns for every single row, which gets all of the data. And then finally, we just want to print that out. So we're going to print column 1 dot value, and then let's just copy this. Let's copy this whole thing. So column 1 dot value, and then column 2 dot value, and then column 3 dot value. And you can call these variables whatever you want, but I'm just going to do these for simplicity. So then in the except, we can just say except exception as, and then let's call it, how about we just call it E for simplicity. Then we just want to print the error, so we'll print E. And then we'll also print the error message, just in case there is an error. We'll just print like error, look at the code again. All right, so that's all for reading. Now it should get all of the data and then just print it out. So let's run it. So let me just go to terminal. And then first, before we run the program, we have to pip install our module. And the module we're using today is OpenPyXL. So pip3 install OpenPyXL. And based on your operating system, it might be pip install, pip3 install, something like that. So pip3 install OpenPyXL, it already says requirement already satisfied. So now we can say Python 3 and then whatever our file name is. In this case, mine is read.py. Read.py. And there we go. So now we have the name, I think it's the age and the weight. Let's check that. Age and height. Oh, where's the weight? Okay, I think we messed up something. Oh yeah, so my bad. There's 4 columns here. So we'll make a column 4 variable. And then column 4. Then here we can say column 4.value. Okay, now let's save that and then clear it and then run it again. And there we go. So now it has everything except for the column headers because we chose not to do that. So we have the first column and then the second one, third one, and fourth one. And this is exactly same as the data we have except formatted differently. So there we go. That worked. And just like this, you can obviously just get a singular cell by just making one of this and then taking it out of the loop. But that's very simple, so we're not going to do that. So let's just comment this out for the next part, because the next part, we're not going to get all of the data, but we're going to get just one column, which is very simple. And it's so simple, we can just copy paste this, and then let's uncomment this here. So just to get one column, you just need to comment out this part, and then just get this part. So let's just delete that and print that. So if you want to get the first column, then you can just mention the column here. So you can say like column 1 or column 2 or column 3 or column 4. So I want to get the names, which is just column 1. So I'm going to do that. And then if we run it again, then it should just get the names. And then you can index through these also. So there we go. That worked. We've gotten all of the data column by column, and then we just got one column, and we printed that out too. So there we go. That's how to read an Excel file using a Python program and OpenPyXL module. Next up, we want to do writing operations. So we actually want to write on the Excel file. Now this is going to be a bit more complex. So I'm going to copy in all of the code we have here, and then I'm going to delete this part. So we just have the setup now and the exception. So as you can see, it's the same code except we have the imports and the setup because that's obviously the same. So now, in order to write one column and then one value, first up, let's just write one column. So let's just copy this organizer and then let's go down here and then we'll say write one column. So for writing one whole column, I'm going to replace whatever text we have in a certain column and then we'll write whatever text we want. So again, I'm going to loop through each row because like I said, I want to do that for every single column, for every single row, which is one whole column. So I'm going to say for row in range, and then we're going to say 2 because again, we're skipping the column headers, and then max row plus 1, and then let's have a colon here. All right, there we go. So now again, I'm going to make that column 1 variable. So column 1 equals sheet object, which is our variable for our Excel file, dot cell, and then we're just going to initialize the same thing, row equals row, column. Now you can change whatever column you want to edit. So I'm going to say column is 1 because I want to edit the name column because that one's the most notable. And then we want to change the value of that. So right now we have that column in a variable, so we can either print that out or we can change the value of it. So now since it's in a variable with the text, we're going to say column1.value, which is just what we would print. But now instead of printing it, we want to change the value. So I'm going to say equals and then whatever text we want. I'm going to say like modified name. And then now it should say modified name for the value of every single row, every single cell in that column. But this is just in the column 1 variable. How do we get it back into that xlsx file? So how we can do that, in my CSV video where I worked with CSV files in Python with pandas, I used the pandas.toCSV function so that it put it back into a CSV file. And OpenPyXL has that kind of function too. So we're going to use our file object variable, which we initialized up here, which was just the file. I'm going to say file object dot, and then we're going to use the save function, and then now we can save it as whatever we want, dot xlsx. So I'm going to say data modified, because this is the modified data, dot xlsx. And then there we go. So now what it should do is it should get the column 1, the first column, and then it's going to change the value of the variable in that column to modified name, and then it'll save that into our data modified.xlsx. There we go. So let's test this out. I'm going to go to terminal here and then clear this, and then Python 3, and then this is a different file name, so I'm going to say write.py. And then there we go, that worked. So now, just so that we can test if it worked, let's just close this, okay? Now we have data modified.xlsx in our files. So it just automatically added that because of our program. So if we open that up, then let's see it. Yeah, there we go. In the name column, all of the values are updated to modified name, just like we said. And if we want to test this out again, let's change this to like hello. And then let's just run that again. And then now if we go back to Finder, then we have data modified.xlsx. And there we go. Now it's changed to hello. So you can keep updating every value in the same column like that. But what if we didn't want to update every single value and we just wanted to write in one value? Let's do that. So I'm going to go back to Atom, and then I'm going to copy this organizer here. And then now we want to write one value instead of one column. And then let's just copy this part, and then we'll comment this out because we don't want it to update one value and one column at the same time. So now inside of the try loop, we're going to put this here, right here. So now again we have our column 1, and then column 1.value is hello. And then again, we're file object.save, and then we're saving it. But now the difference is that we're not in the for loop looping through each row. So whenever it was looping through each row, it was getting that cell, but it was in the loop. So it would get that cell and for one row, and then in the next row it would get the cell again, and then in the next row it would get the cell again. But now that there's no loop, we're not looping through each row. So it's just going to get that one cell, which is the first cell. So instead of row equals row, now we can say row equals, let's say maybe like 1. So that would get the first row and the first column. So now we can just say column 1.value is hello. Instead of that, let's maybe say updated cell. And then we're going to change the file name, data underscore mod.xlsx. And then let's run that again. And it should work. There we go. Now if we go back to Finder, then here we have data mod.xlsx. There we go. That worked. So if I open it up, then it should have updated cell. There we go. So since there's no loop, it's still getting the column header now. So it's getting the first column and the first row, which is this one. And then it changed it to updated cell. There we go. That worked. So what did we do in this demo? We read a whole Excel file, first of all getting all the data and just printing it out, and then it's getting just one column. For getting one column, and then it printed that out. Then we did a little bit of shift, and instead of reading, we started writing in Excel files using the OpenPyXL module. So first we wrote one whole column and updated the values. Then we updated just one value in the whole Excel file. So there we go. That's OpenPyXL and working with Excel files in Python. Alright, so in this video, we worked with Excel files and we did some very simple operations. We read an Excel file and printed all of the values and data, and then we printed just one column. Then we updated an Excel file, updating one whole column and then just one whole value. So there we go. That's writing and updating an Excel file in Python. Thanks very much for watching. If y'all had any doubts, please comment down below. I would love to help you out if you're stuck with any Excel questions or issues. Please like, subscribe, all that jazz. Until then, you can learn anything.